Okay, so the next thing is I noticed this expand. I'm gonna just solo these. So these guitars don't really sound very good. First, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take all these and I'm gonna open my editor, and you can tell that obviously they were drawn in. So the drums were played in, and we had to fix it from the player side being imperfect. In this case, it was drawn in with a pencil or it was step recorded in, and it sounds so metronomic that it has absolutely no life to it. And you can see like my velocities are just identical across the board. So it's kind of just very stale, you know. So I've got my event operations window open. In my quantize, I'm going to I'm not going to worry about note off right now. And I've got quantized to 16th notes, and I think that's fine. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to take those off. Really, what I need to do, because everything is already on the grid, I want to just randomize this. And so I need to highlight, and let's see what happens if we randomize it 15%. That might be, and that way, and if we zoom in, we can see now more like a guitar player would be maybe finger picking or strumming with a guitar. It's not going to all land at the exact same time. And so uh, let's try even a little bit more and see what happens. Let's change it to 20. Yeah, it's just enough to give it a little bit of life. The next thing I want to mess with is my velocities. And again, I'm trying to humanize it. So I don't really need to add. I think the sound of it is okay, but what I want to do is again randomize it a little bit. So I'm going to randomize it, let's say 25. So now you can see my velocities down here changed. Let's see if I can make this larger. Okay, and you can see that instead of just being all one velocity, now it's kind of all over the place, which maybe is too much. Let's see. I also noticed that the rhythm on this is a little bit incorrect. So I'm going to take this. Now the next thing is everything looks like, if I change my grid, let me look at this. Come on. There we go. Yeah, so everything looks like it's a 30-second note, which it sounds so tight that doesn't sound very realistic. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to select everything first of all, and then say change duration, and I'm going to say legato, and see what that sounds like. That's probably going to be too much, because if I do that with this guitar, and that doesn't sound like the song at all. So what I'd like to do is, again, I'm going to say, let's set everything, instead of 250, which would be a 16th note, we'll go a little bit longer. Let's say 300. Let's see what that sounds like. And I also have randomize. I can also randomize it a little bit. So they're not all the exact same length. Because again, if we're playing guitar, it's not going to be the exact same every time. Let's randomize it 25%. And then let's try limiting the range. So a minimum of, let's say 100 and a maximum of 325. Okay, so now, and you can see it, as I hit apply, it's going to keep changing it, which is kind of fun. You can, if you're not sure, you can just kind of do this until it seems right. And let's see what that sounds like. Okay, now I like that, except this last note needs to hang out a little bit longer. So this one, I'm actually going to highlight that specifically, and I can do it with all of them, but I'm just going to do this one. And I'm going to say legato with a gap of 20. So that's going to hold it. Ah, it's starting to sound like the song, isn't it? So, and that's without a whole lot of effort. And then let me see these ones. So again, these ones, um, all of these pushes, because there's some space there, I'm going to kind of highlight all of these at once now, because you can, rather than do one at a time, it's going to take too long. So I'm just going to highlight all these, and then I'm going to do that same thing. So it's going to leave that space there. And if I zoom in, you can see it's leaving some space, and it's also got these randomization tools going. So it's allowing for a little bit of life to be inside my guitar part. I'm going to skip ahead to measure 9. So now one thing I want to mess with here is this build. So let's try this. That's a little bit. Let's try this. From, let's say instead of 1%, we'll say from 50% to 200%. Let's try that. I'm going to hit undo, and then, okay, so now by using this scale, you can see, and I'll make my curve, I'm going to undo it again. I'm going to make my curve a little less extreme. And you see how I'm, with my velocities, I'm creating, and you might have to do a little trial and error, okay? I'm just kind of figuring this out. Oops. I'm going to take this, and then let's try that. So I'm creating a crescendo essentially with velocities, and it'll sound a little better. And like with these, I might want a little bit of a crescendo, and I can select multiple separate regions by holding down shift, by the way. So I like that there's a little bit of a crescendo, because I think there's a little bit of a crescendo that happens in the actual recording. So I'm going to, but in this case, I don't want the crescendo so extreme, so I'm going to make it from, we'll make it 75% to 125 for the chorus. So it's not so crazy. And that took a lot of my velocity out. So I'm going to also add, I'm going to take my randomization off. So a lot of this takes some trial and error. And I'm going to add 30 to it. And let's do this again. No. Let's make my curve a little bit more. No. Let's say, we'll go back to 200. There we go. So you can see it's kind of creating, oh, I see what the problem is. So because I had all of those selected, it was treating them all as one thing. So let's just select one region at a time and try that. And let's undo that. So again, guys, I'm experimenting, right? And then if so it's just adding, the more we do this, we can, so once I find a setting that kind of works, and that way it doesn't just sound so much like a computer doing it, you know? Which, you know, MIDI guitars are what they are, but we can really make the overall sound and effect a whole lot better. Cool. All right. It's already starting to sound better. I'm going to pause the video, and then we'll be on to the next section.